Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the Texas Real Estate and Finance Podcast. My name is Mike Mills, and I am a local mortgage banker in Dallas-Fort Worth with Service First Mortgage. And today we are joined by Caylee Harrington. She is the founder and CEO of a company called HookHub. And this is a platform for connecting RV travelers with private landowners for long-term income-producing stays. It's pretty much the Airbnb for RVs. With city policy shifting and demand from remote workers, travel nurses, all holding strong, we're going to dig into land as a service and how it works, what it pays, and how realtors and investors can monetize land before they sell. So if you own land or you buy land or you sell land or you help people buy or sell land, you are not going to want to miss this one. Now, I'm going to apologize up front because I haven't my health hasn't been dramatically great in the last couple of days. I'm fine. So if I'm sound terrible or coughing through this, I apologize, but we're gonna fight through it as best we can. So Caylee, thank you for joining me today, for popping on with us. So let's just start right off the top. Tell us about HookHub, what you guys do, how your structure is set up, and how people can, really start to look at making money with their land if they own it.
Yeah. Well, I love that you described it like Airbnb. It's the easiest way to grasp the concept. So
Yes.
anyone with land, and I want to mention right up front, they don't need hookups. Anyone with land, they can go onto HookHub and list it within a few minutes. It doesn't take long. And then they can start making money with RV parking. Of course, if you have those amenities, people can charge more. So really our goal is like anyone, let's say you just have a little lot next to your house, you can rent that out, make money, or we have quite a few people who are wanting to start kind of their own mini RV park. They want 5 spots, 10 spots, and that's really like our sweet spot. We're really good for that because we include host coverage, we verify the renters, we do the advertising. So yeah, that kind of gives you an idea as a landowner how you can get going.
Well, and it's kind of crazy. I always kind of try to find some stats on this stuff so people can kind of get some context as to how beneficial this is. But, when you look at, the RV, like the RV Industry Association, they had a summer forecast now where they project like in 2025 wholesale shipments to be about 337,000 units.
Mhm.
And so that's a lot of RVs being purchased, across the country. And, these days, like 11 million or more households are participating in camping from 2024 versus 2019. Traveler spending is up to like $61 billion in camping spend from last year in 2024. So, and that's like a daily spend a household of about like $200, a month on this. So there is a lot. And especially when you look at, if you go to YouTube and search for the glampers and the Gen Zs,
Mhm.
they are living remote. They are traveling all over the place. They've kind of, for better or worse, they've kind of dumped the idea of owning a home to some extent, which is sad for our world. But hopefully that'll turn around. But at least right now, the idea of going from town to town and getting in adventures, as I like to say, is actually a pretty attractive thing for most young folks. And like I said in the intro, when it comes to travel nurses and all of these remote jobs that are now popping up all over the place, people have a lot more freedom on where they can be and where they can work from. So how are you seeing, especially like when you start looking at demographics of folks that are using your service? Are they younger? Are they older? What are you seeing on your end?
Well, that's a good question. And surprisingly, it is younger. Actually, more than 50% of the market of RVers is the younger generation. And
Yeah.
surprising is that most of it's full timers. We get like some of the vacationers and there's people camping, but with us, 90% of our renters are looking for full time. So they're not necessarily just popping around. It's just like you said, a travel nurse or a lot of
Yeah.
people because they can work remote now. They'll live
Yeah.
wherever they want and they just need that long term parking.
So is it more individuals or is it families or is it a little bit mix of both? What are you seeing?
Definitely a mix of both. I yeah, I would say it's a pretty even spread across the board of all the different ages. Because the younger, we have some older, and families. And I will say it's kind of odd. I found there's quite a bit of single divorced women with kids.
Okay.
There's like a huge influx of that. So
Okay.
yeah, I'm not sure. I guess they're just switching to that lifestyle.
Looking to get out of Dodge and go
Yeah,
and
I
see what they
guess.
can do outside. Yeah. Well, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, look, I'm sure you know, because when we spoke before we decided to do this episode, you told me a little bit about your early growing up and your travels and what you were up to and how you kind of your family in and of itself has kind of adopted this lifestyle a little bit
Yeah.
and really enjoyed it. And I think there's a lot to be said about getting out in nature, because these days
Mm.
especially we're so locked into these cities and suburbs that just to see green grass on the ground is a rarity, and being near water. Everybody seems to be happier that lives near a lake or lives near the ocean. So
Yeah.
just for your entire mindset, it seems like something that's beneficial.
Yeah. Yeah. I was definitely living this lifestyle. I was living the full-time RV life, and I agree. I like to be
Yeah.
outdoors. I don't know. I couldn't just stay in the city.
Yeah. What attracted you to it initially when you kind of before you even did the business? What was it
Right.
about that lifestyle that you really liked?
Well, I'm a software engineer, so that's my background, and I can work remotely. I've always just been a little more free spirited, though, so I think it's just kind of who I am. And I was like, I can work anywhere now. I didn't have to be in
Yeah.
an office. And so it didn't take long. Within a month, I bought a truck, I bought a trailer, and I was gone.
Now, is this when you were single or when you like when you
Yeah.
were okay?
Yeah.
And
Sorry, go
you're
ahead.
married now, right?
I am with a
Yes.
boy. Yeah, with a
Yes.
son. So yeah, things are easier when you're single. You can just take off and go, but soon the whole family, we're hoping to do it again.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, again, it's kind of a thing where when you have the flexibility and freedom to do these types of things, and these days everything's so damn expensive and
Yeah.
everything costs a lot of money, and so when you can look at, okay, I could travel, which a lot of people want to do, whether they
Mhm.
do it or not, it always seems to be a topic of these are the things I wish I could do.
Mhm.
So when you have that along with the freedom to go where you want to go, and then especially when you're single and having that capability, it's really great. And not only that, you don't have to own a house. You can own
Right.
this vehicle that you can park in a lot of different places and still be able to get all the adventure in life that
Yeah.
you want, but still keep your job.
Right, right, and just on that point, I was surprised to see actually most of our full-time, RVers, a lot of them do own their own home and land back home, and they rent
Okay.
their land out on HookHub while they're
Really?
somewhere else. So, yeah, I just wanna throw that in there. A lot of these people, it's just a big change in the trend of the full-time RVer. Everybody thinks of, the retired snowbirds, but it is a lot of young people who, do have their own place, but yeah, they just want a different lifestyle.
I like snowbirds. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Um, what when you first came up with this concept, what was kind of the iteration where you decided, okay, I think this is a need in a market that I could fill? And is there much competition out there? Or where did you see the gaps in where you thought you could find a niche in this particular
Yeah.
type of lifestyle?
Oh, that's a great question. So first, how I came up with the idea and why I created it is, I was living the full-time RV life, and the RV park I was staying at the time, I'd been there like 3 months, and then I find out from my neighbor in the RV park that the RV park was sold. And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" So I go find the owner and I can't get a hold of him. And then finally the new owner came and talked to me, and he's like, "Yeah, you have 2 weeks to get out." And I'm like, "What?" Like,
Wow.
how can you do this? So I started looking, and this wasn't even peak season, and I couldn't find RV parking. I mean, I looked and I called, and it's your typical, you search Google, you find a place, you call, you wait for a call back. It's just not many places have websites. It was just a mess. And it
Yeah.
took me months, and I ended up just staying on a friend's property. And then later, like a week later, I'm just like driving along and I'm like, hey, what? Why isn't there something like that? I can just pay them through the app. I can book, stay on their property. So that's why I started looking. There are a couple competitors besides RV parks. Like the main one would be Harvest Hosts and Hip Camp. The
Okay.
big difference is though, because I tried theirs and they're all for short term. They're all about camping. You stay for one night or you stay for the weekend. I was like, well, that's not how I am. When I go to a new place, I want to stay for a couple months or, maybe even longer. So I
Yeah.
was like, there really is no demand, or there is no nobody doing this yet. So I
Right.
just started building, and that was it.
Wow. Yeah, I also found it said something along the lines of that when they talk about people that live this and do this, that booking difficulty is a number one concern. It
Yeah.
said something like 50%, over 50% of the campers kind of struggled to find campsites and book last year. And that's up from like 40% from the year before. So, you're seeing a lot of people that are more and more trying to get into this and
Right.
are running into challenges like you had, where like, how do I find this? Where can I go? Where are the sites available? What are the amenities? And there doesn't seem to be much out there. Now the market is growing, but the
Yeah.
services that associate to that market are maybe having a hard time keeping up with the demand that's starting to show. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say the supply side they're like dinosaurs. Like I said, no, most of them don't have websites, or if they do, you can't book on there. You still have to call. And yeah, it's kind of amazing how this market is growing so much. And like the RVers, all of us tend to be more techie and like we're advanced, but our needs are not being met, by the
Yeah.
RV parks or what we're looking for. So yeah, there's this
Yeah.
huge gap.
Well, and when I do mortgage lending, one of the questions I get all the time is people ask me if we finance land, because a lot of people are, out purchasing
Yeah.
property, especially in Texas. We have a lot of land out here, especially if you get outside the cities.
Yeah.
And, from a lending perspective, like I work for a mortgage bank, and we specialize in loans that are done through Fannie and Freddie and HUD and VA and those type of deals. And there's just not a lot of land loans that come through those different portals. You have to typically go to like a private bank that's in that area and get a loan through them. They're usually short-term 10-year ARMs to some extent. There's a lot of different products available, but you can't do it through the normal channels. So even just financing land is a challenge. But I run into it all the time. People ask me, like, literally every week. I get that question. So there's definitely a demand for people that are buying land. What we see a lot of times too is people will purchase a property, let's say, or even a lot of times they'll inherit properties. This happens quite a bit too, on a lake, right? And it's not developed. They haven't put a house on it or anything along those lines. And they're like, well, eventually we're going to build our retirement home here, or eventually we're going to do this, right? And sometimes eventually comes, but often, it doesn't.
Life.
But these properties are owned by people. They're just sitting there and they're not being utilized. And having something like this where people are aware that, hey, you have this piece of raw land that doesn't cost you much. Odds are it's probably paid for. You might be paying taxes, which are going to be pretty low because it's unimproved taxes. There's nothing on there. So, it's like, okay, well, what can I do with this? And I just don't think people understand how much demand there is for people looking for these spots and having a service that you can go out and find it.
Right. Yeah. They don't realize how easy it could be to start making money off it. And it's kind of sad because land is such an asset. There's a lot you can do with it. And yeah, I'm hoping to get the message out there so people can actually, either make money when they're selling it, buying it, just sitting on it. Yeah, which happens a lot.
So you said earlier that there are people that have hookups and, for water and electricity, and they maybe even have a concrete slab or something along those lines. But a lot of your, listers, let's call it, they don't necessarily have those hookups, and it's not always needed. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So on that point, you do not need them, but I would say most of our listers do have hookups. I was kind of
Okay.
shocked to see how many people, at least water and electric, because you don't actually need traditional hookups. We have people who just run the electrical cord from their house and they run a water line, and that's all they need. Sorry, I forgot where we were going with that, but I was
Well,
gonna
it's
say, yeah.
compared to, without the hookups.
So without the hookups, yeah, you can still list because you can do storage parking on the app and you can do boondocking. People do pay for that. Boondocking is when you pay to park your RV without any hookups.
Okay.
So especially areas where there's a lot of private land, there's nowhere to park. So either way, you can still make money with that. We had one guy making over $700 a month with one spot that was dry, no hookups.
Really?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so you could almost say that they're using it kind of like just paid parking.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of amazing that you can just literally, it's in Chino Valley. A woman listed her spot, no hookups, no amenities, nothing. And yeah, we got her a month-to-month renter.
Wow. Yeah, I guess it would be a situation where you have an RV that either is sitting in front of your house, which a lot of neighborhoods don't appreciate, or
Right.
maybe you have a little bit of land, but it's taking up a spot out there. But if you could find a relatively inexpensive place to just store it, essentially,
Right.
without having to, worry about all the fees associated with big time parking or storage areas, I
Yeah.
guess that's another avenue and a benefit for it that people don't understand.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's shocking how expensive it is to just do storage.
Yeah.
So, yeah, people use our app because the hosts do it much cheaper. And I like to think it's more secure too, because a lot of our properties, the hosts live there on the property. So you kind of you
Mhm.
have somebody watching over it and vice versa, RVer watching over your property for you.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's a huge
It's
benefit. I mean,
extra. Yeah.
yeah. Well, there's a lot of facets to it. Like you have a lot of different things. It's not just people going on vacation. It's parking, it's
Right.
storage, it's someone that's working that maybe even in some more of a suburban area. I mean, so that's a question. So how many do you know, obviously there's a lot of land that's out of the way a little bit, but also on top of that, how much do you see, people that are kind of in either city or suburban areas that just happen to own 3 or 4 acres that's a little bit unique? Do you see a lot of that?
We haven't gotten the people there's people I'm talking to who are like in the cities with a couple acres that I'm like, you're prime spot. We should
Mhm.
but most of the people renting out their spots, they're gonna be a little more on the outskirts. That we have people in the
Right.
cities that are just like, right on the outskirt. The thing is there's more demand for RV parking like in the city. But
Right.
right now we gotta spread the message more and tell people to get in those cities.
So what is the general pricing model look like when you're set up to, whether it's longer term stays, shorter term stays with hookups, without hookups, depending on the location? What are you seeing? Like, how's your pricing structure set up?
So location amenities do make a difference, but just as a generalization, for a nightly, we have between 40 to 100 a night they can
Mhm.
make. That range includes with and without hookups. As for
Right.
monthly, that's where you really see a difference between with hookups, without hookups. With hookups, we see a range between 800 to 1200 a month, and for without hookups, it can be 4 to 500,
Well,
and that's
so
per
I
one
mean,
space. Yeah.
yeah, I mean that's again, I mean that's if you just have raw land that's sitting there with
Yeah.
nobody doing anything with it, it's just, I mean, it's not free money, but it's pretty
It
close.
kinda is. If you just do storage, you make a few hundred off each storage, unit
Yeah.
that you allow. That's decent money.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because it's not doing anything otherwise, so it's
Right.
good. Do you run into like what kind of challenges are you seeing when it comes like for the landowners, any
Mhm.
kind of like the liability and for I'll give you an example. So I have some land where I
Oh,
live.
yeah.
I live in Mansfield, which is a suburb of Dallas Fort Worth, and
Okay.
we have 3 acres. And on our back 2 acres, it's just a bunch of trees with very little much of anything else, right? We have a creek that
Yeah.
runs behind our house, and that's
Oh,
pretty
it's
much
nice.
it. But occasionally, when it rains hard enough, I will get some flooding back there because it is in a
Okay.
flood zone.
Yeah.
But you're talking maybe 1 or a foot of water, for 30 minutes or something, and it goes away, and it happens once every 6 months or something like that.
Oh,
So,
wow. Okay.
so what are you seeing like as far as landowners holding liability for if something happens to it, when the person's not there? How do you guys navigate that?
So we do include the host coverage, so it's damage protection. So
Mhm.
for right now, the coverage includes for if any damage happens to the host's property, anything at all, we will reimburse them for that. If something
Gotcha.
were to happen to the RVer, right now we're just doing more mediation. Like I'll reach out, I'll help the RVer, and we do reimburse them, but we don't advertise that yet.
Right, right,
So yeah,
right.
it's really just on the host side protecting them.
Yeah, yeah. Because I mean, anytime you have property, there's always liability concerns
Yeah,
as to when it's
absolutely.
being stored somewhere
Yeah.
else, and how that fits into it, and all that. So now, as far as like the and we talked a little bit about the younger folks that are out there, but as far as like employment style, where the travel nurse thing is huge. Excuse me. Is huge these days, and you're seeing a lot of people move around from city to
Mhm.
city working based on their contracts and stuff. So is are you seeing that as like a growing market and a growing demand for a lot of things?
Absolutely. The nurses and I would say construction workers too. If you don't
Okay.
realize a lot of those large construction projects that happen, they'll bring in their guys from all over and then they'll be there for 3 to 6 months. So
Yeah.
absolutely, we're seeing a lot of demand for in those fields.
So that means you probably have a pretty big corporate book of clients that are always looking for spots because they may even own several RVs and they're doing construction in an area and they need to move stuff into it. It's kind of like, again, back to the Airbnb model. A lot of people thought in the beginning with Airbnbs that it was just all vacation stuff. I'm going to go to the
Right.
lake, or I'm going to go to the beach or the mountains or whatever, and I'm going to rent a place and we're going to have a family vacation. But now you're starting to see a lot more Airbnbs in cities and in suburbs where companies will come in, they will rent
Right.
that spot out to their employee for a period of time. And then that person will live there for 3 months or 6 months or however long their
Yeah.
contract is, and then they'll leave out. So I'm imagining that's probably becoming a big part of what you guys do as well.
Absolutely. That's exactly it. I would say the majority of it is that.
Yeah, yeah. Are you having with the corporate side of things, are you developing like partnerships or just specific contacts with these larger companies and then trying to network through that to find those renters?
So I love that question. So to anybody out there listening, that's what we're looking at right now is we want to get more of those partnerships.
Mhm.
Currently, we've just been doing it on our own and finding, the hosts and the renters, a lot of legwork, but we are looking for those partnerships to like one-on-one, these companies like we'll take care of you, getting you, places to rent.
Yeah. So what would you tell somebody who was, say, an investor and they were looking for land and thinking about utilizing it for something like this? What type of you know properties or areas would you suggest people look at, to if they're looking to get into something like this and have it utilized for that?
Well, there is definitely certain areas that have higher demand, but I would tell somebody looking to do this, I wouldn't worry as much as you think about that the location. The
Okay.
demand is so high. I have people with property and locations that you would think no one really wants to go to that
Yeah.
we're getting booked up completely. So I wouldn't worry about that necessarily. The main thing is see if you can get water and electric there. As long as you
Okay.
can offer those two specifically, then you're guaranteed to get those
Yeah.
bookings.
Yeah. Do you have, I'm curious if you have any unique stories on people that, have used your service that you've talked to and have kind of gone through the process a little bit, that have had some experiences that good and bad, that you've kind of come across. Have you heard much of those crazy narratives?
I wish I had heard more funny stories. Right now, fortunately, it's nothing bad or it's just been good feedback. Everybody has liked the process. Um, I can't think of any like actual like funny stories of something that's happened just yet, but
Right.
I'm sure it's
What
coming.
about what about for you personally? Because you've been living this lifestyle for a while. So what have you personally experienced and come across?
Oh, well, I mean, anyone that's an entrepreneur out there knows that the lifestyle it's a roller coaster. It's fun.
Yep.
It's been good. We hit growth spurts and that's been great. And there's times, where you're just in the grind. But otherwise, that's just pretty much what it's been. You stay focused and just keep
Yeah.
going.
So you did software engineering prior to this.
Right.
I'm sure you worked for somebody, and now you're doing this full time, right?
Yep. Yep. I went full
Okay.
time once I started building it.
So how did your experience doing software engineering kind of help you, take the step and be able to pull something like this off?
Well, I think just the mentality of a software engineer, you're somebody that if you come across a problem, you don't see it as a problem, you see it as there's a solution, I just haven't found it yet. A lot of
Right.
engineers like they won't give up, for like a dog with a bone.
Yeah.
And that definitely carries over to being, an entrepreneur now. Um,
Uh-huh.
with the engineer experience, obviously that really helps with the app when we have bugs, whenever I want features, I know exactly how to make that happen, but also just that mentality. It keeps you going. That stubbornness,
Yeah.
it gets you there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, have you decided, AI is becoming a big part of everybody's life these days.
Yeah, yeah.
So have you started to explore some different applications that you could use to kind of benefit what you guys are offering people and trying to integrate some of that?
Yeah. So I would say for right now, we are using it for marketing. Um,
Okay.
it's wonderful for that. I have an idea. I help ChatGPT helps me build it out. And then especially when it comes to our social media posts, I'll go in there, give a few prompts, and it just kind of inspires you and helps you come up with more ideas.
Yeah.
For future though, for the app, there's a lot of ideas I want to add in. First, for even us finding hosts, I want to do like smart lead recommendations. There's a way I'd
Okay.
like to build out with AI where it actually can go through and tell me, these are the demand heat maps that we're seeing, and then these are the areas we should focus on, to kind of help narrow that down. Another
Mhm.
one is for automating onboarding for renters and hosts. It's
Okay.
already like pretty simple, but I think we can make it even easier, especially if you have property. I think it'd be cool if you could just go in and pretty much, show a little video, write a description, and then it would build out all the pieces we need and just prompt you like, hey, what about this?
Yeah.
So I really want to add that in, and that would include for pricing. So that's one of the main questions we get with hosts. They're like, what should I price my property
Right.
at?
Right.
And they'll usually just message me, and I'll use ChatGPT and build them out like a whole sheet and like with numbers explaining what the best is and what they should do for seasonal. But obviously when I have time, I could sit down and just put that into the app.
Right.
It's pretty simple. So yeah, when they're
Yeah.
like, what should I price this? It'll take all the data they've given so far and tell them the best pricing.
Yeah.
Um,
So
and that
are
can
you
keep going,
seeing
but
no, 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 no. Are you seeing that when it comes to like new landowners that or not new landowners, but new people, new customers that own land that come
yeah.
to you, are you doing individual consultations with them up front, just kind of say, hey, here's the best methods of listing and whatever, or is it pretty much they handle it on their own, or how do they go about listing their property with you guys?
So I do see some that just pop up on their own, but
Mhm.
majority, if I'm talking to them first or they're talking to me, I like to get on a call, do a one-on-one. If they're close
Okay.
by, I'll go see them. And, just as the founder, it gives me more feedback too, like what they're wanting and how to make
Mhm.
the everything better. But yes,
Mhm.
so right now I tend to try and meet with each host.
Gotcha. And are you guys, I mean, because you're web based mostly, are you pretty much everywhere across the country that you could be, or are there certain licensing requirements depending on the state, or how does that work?
So we are in 9 states right now, but we're built for
Okay.
US and Canada. But
Okay.
licensing, no. But they do need to check their city regulations or their county, and we do have some documentation helping with that. Some of the hosts I
Okay.
also just help them research, but yeah, you'll just have to check your land specifically, where you're at, like what's allowed.
Gotcha. And on the listing side, can they specify if this is I only want short term, or I want only long term, or I want only storage, or are there can they put limitations on what as a listing person that they can allow?
Yes to all that. So we try to make it really customizable. So we do have some people who only want nightly renters, and then we have
Right.
people who just want storage, and then monthly, yearly, and then um, sorry, the second part that you said. Yes. So when they can say only to like no children. Some people don't want people under 18 staying. I
Okay.
don't always know for sure why, but they don't. They only want adults there. So you can customize it just to you. And then, of course, a renter will make a booking request and you can look at their profile. And depending on dates, depending on their profile, their rig, anything, you can deny it or approve it.
Okay. So they have a lot of flexibility on what they can allow in or who they want to bring in.
Yeah.
Now, I would imagine that the more flexibility you have on who you're allowing to come in or out, the better it's going to be as far as your bookings, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So you put less limitations on it, you're going to have more opportunity. But at the same
Oh, yeah.
time, depending on your land setup, you may not want
Right.
to have more or less of something on there. Yeah. Are you seeing that, when it comes to having people, book with you directly, are they or I should say when they're booking themselves and trying to find spots, are you talking to them more, or are they doing it purely online, or is there some communication there as well to try to figure out, what exactly they're looking for and where?
Not much anymore. Now,
No?
I mean, I put the advertising out there and all people like within that they'll reach out to me, but not really. Now the bookings kind of just happen on their own, and then I'll
Yeah.
reach out to the host, and they could just go on and approve it themselves. But I still like to, like I said, be one on one. So I'll reach out to the hosts and I'll go over the details with them just to make sure they're comfortable.
Gotcha. Have you guys thought about partnering with real estate agents in rural areas that do a lot of land, and trying to do some marketing and advertising with them in order to kind of share contacts and people that can have people that would be interested in something like this?
Right, right. We have, I haven't followed up. I definitely want to. I would like to get a pool going of different realtors because I see the benefit even more on their side.
Okay.
Because for their buyers or sellers, they could say, to the sellers, hey, we can make money until it sells, or
Yeah.
it will increase the property value when you're then trying to sell it, saying, hey, you can also make money with this land. So yeah, there's a lot of benefit there. So I'm wanting to get into some realty groups and see if
Yeah.
like they can start offering that.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. When you're actually listing a property, if you're selling it, showing that it's already earning some income on its own, that probably adds to the value quite a bit. What is your
It
what is
does.
your approach? Like, how would you approach an agent and tell them, hey, look, here's what it's doing, here's how it boosts the value? How would you see that?
So that's probably where I would need to learn more from your side with the realty. Um, I just have a couple friends who are realtors, so I've just been
Yeah,
chatting the idea with them. I haven't gone after it aggressively yet, so I'm still kind of figuring out what the right message is to get realtors to like want to get on board.
yeah. Um, so you said you have a son.
Yes.
Okay. Are you guys still RVing it everywhere, or do you have a spot that you've settled in, and what's that like with kids?
So we are pretty settled in. I feel like
Okay.
embarrassed to say, I'm like, this is my company. We have a house. I'm actually in my RV now because I love it.
Okay.
But
Love it.
yeah, we are stationary right now since I've been running the company. uh, I'm sure you know when you're running your own thing, you're busy a lot.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Do you see a lot of families outside of vacation that are doing this stuff?
Yeah, yeah, I would say that's another thing that surprised me about the market, because I did my research beforehand, I thought I knew, but once you
Yeah.
get into things, it's different, and it's been a lot of families, a
Really?
lot, yeah, doing the full-time life, which is it's good to see. It's good to see that people are, getting out and showing their kids the world.
Yeah. Do you think they're like homeschooling and doing it
Oh,
there,
yes.
or are these okay, okay.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
these aren't
Yeah, I tend to get to know a lot of them, and yeah, they're all doing the homeschool thing.
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, it's like I said, it's become a big a big attraction for a lot of people because of the expenses and everything that's
Yeah,
associated to it. And it's kind of one of those things where, once you understand or once you realize that you have an alternative, because we were kind of always raised in this world
yeah,
of, you get a job, you settle down, you do all these kind of things that
mhm.
that's just what most people's expectation is. But as the world starts to change a little bit, you start realizing, that there's more and more ways to live life than just, settling down in a neighborhood.
Yep, get the white picket fence, the dog, yeah. Now we know there's
Yeah.
options, yeah,
Yes, yes. Now you have alternatives.
yeah.
Do you see, like, as far as the bookings are concerned, are they pretty frequent as far as one location fills up pretty good, or does it depend on the location on how often they book? I mean, are you having listings that never book? It's kind of like an idea of, okay, I'm thinking about doing this. Am I really going to get bookings, or am I just going to sit there as a listing forever?
Okay. Yeah, so we do a couple properties. Well, okay, first I'll say yes, depends on the location. Some of them just constantly, it's already booked up and I still people contacting me saying, is there any way I can get in? I'm like, no, like it's
Right.
full. And then we have ones who it's more of a steady pattern. Once it
Okay.
clears out, it takes a month, they'll get another booking, and that booking's usually like 3 months long. But we have a couple that I have trying to go above and beyond to get them bookings, and they're not getting bookings. And these 2 that I'm thinking of, it's because they're offering parking on their property in an area surrounded by public land, and they're not offering hookups. So I'm like,
Got it.
you gotta understand, like, the guy can go another 10 feet and do the same thing for free. So
Right.
if you're near public land, you definitely have to offer something extra. Private land areas, for sure, people will still book with no hookups. That's why I try to tell people if you can offer any amenities, that's going to have a drastic impact on you getting
Right.
bookings.
Right. So it really, it depends on supply and demand in the area, right?
Yes.
If
Yeah.
there's a bunch of opportunities for other people to take parking and be able to do it there, and you don't have much to offer outside of space, then you're probably going to have a little bit less,
Right.
demand for that, versus if you're in an area where there isn't very much, parking availability. So do you guys have tools or research that you can provide to your listers to say, hey, look, here's what we're seeing in your area, here's how many spots we have, here's what they're offering, so they can compare it?
For hosts that are looking to kind of show them
Yeah.
yeah. So that right now, that's the AI thing I want to add in. Right now, if a host asks me, or even somebody considering it, I'll
Yeah.
write up a whole thing using my AI prompt and stuff that'll like explain all that and break it down. But that's something I want to build in because I do see a lot of demand for that. I'm asked
Yeah.
that pretty often.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if they don't know any better, it's always helpful
Right.
to say, hey, look, here's the demographics in your area. Here's where like you said, they're setting the pricing. Here's about what we
Right.
think the pricing should be. Here's the, here's how many spaces are available that were within 5 miles of you. Here's what they're offering. Here's their demand load. It gives them a lot of data, at least to make a better decision on if they think it would be worthwhile, I would think.
Yeah, you saying that, I'm putting it on my list. I think I need to move that up sooner. A
Well,
question you keep hearing, it's probably something you need to, yeah.
yeah. Well, I mean, look, anytime you're doing a startup like you're doing, there's always a little bit of trial and error, right? It's like, okay,
Yeah.
what do we think we need versus what do we actually need? Because a lot of times when you start a business like this, you have a vision, of course, on what you think
Mhm.
it's going to be, but until you actually start working it, a lot of times that vision will shift because your customers tell you what they want and what they
Yeah,
need, and you're like, okay, I have to adjust according to that. So have you
right.
come across anything like that where you were like, okay, I think this is what it's going to be, and then you were surprised as to actually what it turned out?
Yeah, I would say that's very often. You do your research, you do your homework, you plan, you interview people, and so you think like what is
Right,
wanted, and you build that. But you're right, once you're in it and you're actually giving customers something, that's when you start hearing different things. You start seeing what they really want.
right,
So the biggest one I think I mentioned before was the long-term parking.
right.
I was sure it would mostly be short-term people and vacation, so I geared the app more towards that for hosts and
Okay,
renters looking for that. And it hasn't been. It's been all for long-term. So now I'm purposely finding hosts that want the long-term. And I'm realizing though, because there are apps like Hip Camp and there's campgrounds, so there is ways for people to find that vacation stay, but as for the long term, there is no avenue for booking that easily.
have you looked at or explored the idea of being almost like a middleman between bookings for, like, for example, you mentioned public parks earlier. So a lot of public parks have spaces that are available, but they don't do a great job of advertising it, right? Because
Absolutely.
they don't put it out there. So have you started to create relationships with those to try to say, hey, look, I know you have these spots and I know you charge for them, but I can help get people to your area. Have y'all looked at that?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I actually have a couple on the app now, a couple different properties that are just like that. They're already set up and doing their business, but they weren't getting enough. So I actually
Right.
have them listed with us. And so we want to start doing larger RV parks who have multiple locations and get them on as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I would imagine, because a lot of times it's like any profession, like if you're, especially with public ones, right? Because it's being run by the government, state
Yeah.
governments, local governments, and they're terrible at everything. So much less marketing the services that they have to people to come out and use their spaces. And it's hard to find that stuff, especially if you're not from the area and you don't know the parks
Yeah.
that are there, you don't know the availability of it. But if you have one spot that you could go to figure all that out, it would just make it would make it a whole lot easier,
Absolutely.
which is what you have.
I mean, what you're saying too, like the area I was from, I couldn't even find that information. So yeah,
Yeah.
it'd be nice if there's one central source to find that.
Yeah. So I'm curious, and we talked about it a little bit, but I want you to kind of elaborate on me. So you're single, you're living this lifestyle, you're working as a software engineer, and then how does that go from you doing all these things to I want to run my own business now and build it around this? And like, how did you meet your husband? Was he on board with this when you came in? Is this something y'all did together? Like, how did that go?
So I will say, because it does seem like a big jump, but there's a lot of entrepreneurs in my family. And since I was a little kid, like my dream was to have my own business. So it wasn't really
Yeah.
like surprise, thing for
Right.
me. It's like I was waiting for the idea. So once it happened and I realized the demand, I just, jumped in. And I actually met my husband around that time when I had the idea and I was starting it. Um, so I was, yeah, being with a founder is a lot. So you got to have a good partner who's going to put up with that. Fortunately,
Yes.
he's my cheerleader and he was all about it from the beginning. So that wasn't too much of a challenge. And
Good.
of course, me switching to a stationary life worked out well too, because he's more stationary as well.
Yeah.
So I think me traveling, that wouldn't have worked. But, now that I work so much, I don't really miss the travel right now. Every day is an
Yeah.
adventure, just running a
Yeah.
company. Yeah,
Yeah. Well, and you did a lot of the traveling when you were young.
that's
So, I
true.
mean, a lot of times you get stuff out of your system and you want to
Yeah,
change lifestyle up a little bit, but you also the benefit of it though is you also understand the value of it, right? So it's an easy thing to sell to other people because you experienced it, you did it, you lived it. Whether you're still living it now or not, I'm sure y'all still travel from time to time. You still have the
Oh
RV,
yeah.
so I'm sure it's
Oh
not
yeah.
something you don't go out and do. Did you have to did you have to find investors, or is this something you guys funded yourself?
So it started self-funded, and I did get an investor. Well, a couple. I did a family and friends round, and then our last round was with Jason Calacanis. Most people in the investing world know the name. So he invested the most,
Oh yeah,
and you gotta
J
say,
Cal.
yeah, yes,
Yes.
yes,
From
yes.
the All In podcast. I listen to them all
Yeah.
the time.
Oh, cool.
Really?
That's awesome. Yeah.
Okay.
So he was our main big investor. And so we're trying to raise our next round soon. And then he's going to come and invest more with that next round. Um, but we'll see how it goes. I mean, honestly, our growth rate before our runway ends, we should be okay and not need
Yeah.
it. I'm hoping to raise another round because then we can just grow faster. I can hire
Yeah.
more people on.
So how did you come into contact with JCal, as they
I,
call him?
I feel like I just got lucky, like, because it's hard. It's hard to like
Yeah.
get in front of an investor. It's like it's a full-time
Yes.
job just trying to talk to them. But I just put it out there. I was like, to my network on LinkedIn and then this girls group I'm in, and I'm like, hey, does anybody know of someone? And then it happened to be like a friend of a friend. They're like, oh, hey, he runs this founder university thing. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
okay. So I reached out to it and I was like, hey, my friend said, I honestly, I didn't even know who he was then. Like, I don't know the investors or I didn't know he was
I
such a
mean,
big
that's a big
name.
one. Listen, that's
I
a big
know.
one. He invests in a lot of stuff like Uber. I mean, he's got a lot. He's on the
I
front end of a
know.
lot of things. Yeah.
I was so lucky. So I did. I applied to that university and I did it. And then after that, the companies that stood out and that had a high growth rate, they consider for their, I'm trying to remember what they call it. There's their accelerator. It's something where they invest and then they help you with finding future investors. So it was at that point, they're like, you're doing great. And so he invested in us. And yeah, yeah,
So
I'm very
did you
fortunate.
meet him in person and go have a
Oh, yeah,
conversation with him
I
and pitch
have.
him
Not,
then?
oh, I didn't have to at that point because I did at the university that he
Yeah.
runs. Like he saw our company, he saw our pitch and all that. So, but
Okay.
it was later that I did get to meet him. I went out to see him in California and it was a pretty cool experience.
Wow, that's great. I mean,
Yeah,
look, anytime you have a guy like that on your side, I mean, because money's money, of course, and it matters, but those guys carry a lot of clout, especially
yeah,
in the investing world. So, like, if you go into your second round of investing and you can say, "Here's one of our seed guys from the beginning," I mean,
right.
that alone will get people to go, "Oh, well, if he's doing it, then I'm getting involved," because he's had a
That's
lot of
true.
success putting money into places.
I don't think I throw the name around enough. Maybe that's the problem. Like I'm reaching out to investors, but I'm not mentioning anything about Jason. So I probably should do that.
Yes, I would
Okay.
strongly suggest that
Oh,
that become part of. Now, obviously, you might want to clear it with him. I don't know, how he feels about that kind of stuff,
that's true.
but I would definitely. I mean, look, clout is important, right? And whenever you can get someone to be excited about what you're doing and have a little bit of interest, and then you get the third party validation that a guy
Right.
like
That's true.
him that
Yeah.
carries. I mean, they have one of the largest podcasts in the country.
Yeah.
The four of them together, and he's the moderator of it, so he talks more than anybody. So I mean,
Hmm.
he's the guy on that show, and they host these massive summits every year where they get people like Elon Musk and all these big investors to come in and talk at their presidents and
Right. Yeah.
congressmen. I mean, look, that's you have this guy in your
I know.
network
And
that
I'm not.
is like, yeah, like, come on, let's go, come on, Caylee, you gotta think bigger, baby.
You're right. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah, starting a business is hard. It's difficult, and and it's not something that everybody has the stomach for. But going through the process yourself, if someone called you and said, "All right, Caylee, I want to start my own business," whatever it is, what are some things that you've experienced that you've gone through that you're like, okay, well, make sure you do this, or make sure you don't do that, or whatever the case may be. What have you learned in this process?
A lot. It's kind of funny because what we just spoke of kind of leads to that. My main thing is don't try and go it alone. I'm somebody that like when I want to solve a problem, I try and tackle it all by myself. Like
Yeah,
and that's just the way I am. But I'm realizing you want a successful company or you want something to take off, don't try to do it yourself. You want to surround yourself with people who know more than you.
yeah,
definitely that. Now I have this one employee who's managing the other ones, and he's just amazing. So I'm thankful that I actually went out and looked for that help and found him. So that'd be the main thing. Don't just sit in a box and work away. Get out
Yeah.
there. Networking is a huge deal. I mean, honestly, in any field, any profession, anything, networking. So I'd recommend that as a founder too.
Yeah. Is there any don'ts, any big lessons that you've learned where you're like, definitely don't do this?
Don't get an idea in your head and just stick to it in a stubborn way.
Okay.
So some people and I did it first too with my idea. I just kind of stuck to it, and I was seeing some other things that would say point to the contrary that maybe I should consider. And I've learned you have to be able to adapt. And the hardest part is knowing when to adapt and when to kind of stick to your guns. So as you're growing, like we were saying before, you're going to hear from your customers what they want. You're going to get a lot of feedback. And I've learned to just pretty much write it all down. And then when I see things in repetition, that's when I start really considering how can I fix this? How can I improve this? Because obviously, it's not just this one person thinking. It's something that the whole market is going to be wanting.
Yeah. I hear a lot from entrepreneurs, and I go through this myself, some or probably more than I care to admit to myself, but we have there's always ideas, right? You have ideas,
Yeah.
things that you want to do. I want to do this, and I want to do that, and I want to do this. And I've found talking to people and doing this that the people that can get hyper focused on the one idea, whether it is great or maybe it pans out or doesn't, or whatever the case may be, it's kind of like when you're trying to do so many things at once, you never
Oh,
really
yes.
do any of them. But
Yeah.
when you focus on one thing, even if that idea doesn't pan out, the lessons that you learn in
Yeah.
building to that point is really the value. It's almost like its own education.
Yeah.
And then your next idea that you focus on, might have the success, or maybe the third or fourth one or whatever, but you're always learning through that process. Did you
Yeah.
kind of experience that too?
Absolutely. That's a really good point. Yeah. So before, when I was kind of staying focused on my idea, but like I said, knowing when to swivel. So kind of what you're saying is you still have to keep that broader vision and just stick to it. It is hard to, always day in and day out. But I do agree with that even the things little things, even like software things, I've worked on where I'm trying so hard to get to work. And then you look back a week later, and you're still kind of stuck. You feel like you lost that week, but you didn't.
Yeah.
What you learned through the next thing, when I try and solve the next problem, you learn a lot from each one.
Yeah. 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 It's definitely something where, you think people think of failure as, I didn't achieve my goal, or I didn't succeed in what I'm doing. And often those failures is what leads to the successes, because
Mhm.
you have to go through that journey. You have to experience that thing. And there's so much that you learn through that. People forget the value of the lessons that you learned, or the things you
Right.
learned to do or not to do. And, just going through that process in and of itself is a success. You just don't
Absolutely.
realize it in the moment because you didn't achieve whatever the thing was that you were trying to achieve. And that can be, frustrating for folks. And that's where a lot of people kind of give up,
Mhm.
and say, okay, I just can't do this, and I move on. And it's, whenever you hear of success stories of people that, just went after it and did it, it's inspiring, because you're like, okay, I can do this. I think I can pull this
Mhm.
off. And I think it's, it's great, especially, as a female owned business where, this is something that was your passion and your baby that you built, and you're going through the process just like anybody else. You haven't completed it. It's not like you've hit the end journey. You still have a long way to
Right.
go.
Yeah.
But staying positive and going through it and learning those things as you go through, that in and of itself is incredibly rewarding, right?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, to me, that is part of the success. Like you mentioned, you hear those stories of the successful people, but you don't know all the struggles they went through as well that made them successful. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like you're saying, it's not the success itself. It's
Yeah.
yeah,
You get the end journey, the result, you're like, oh, they did it. And it's like, yeah, but you didn't see the 15 years that they fell on their face 100
they were
times
learning.
before they
Yeah,
actually, yeah.
yeah.
Where are you guys at in your growth model, as far as, what are your next steps that you're really trying to add to kind of build this, and so you're ready for that next round of investing?
So right now we are focusing primarily on getting more hosts. So before,
Okay.
the renters, you can see that you can see in the numbers, the revenue going up every month. Right now we're putting a pause on trying hard to get more renters. They're still coming in, but we're focusing all of our marketing efforts on just getting the hosts. Because then we're hoping, we can go to investors and say, we made this much with this amount. Well, look how many hosts we have now. And then
Yeah.
hopefully if we start swiveling our marketing back to the renters, we can really just show that explosive growth.
Gotcha. So you're actually seeing more renters than you are hosts right now.
Yeah, yeah.
Really?
People, I guess in marketplaces, most time it's hard to get the demand side. Us, it's the
Right.
opposite. Supply side, I wouldn't say it's hard. It's once we talk to people, they're on board, and they want to host. But it's hard to get in front of them and tell them about this. No one knows about it yet. But as far as demand side, renters, no problem. Like we
Really?
get places, yeah, except for those 2 properties I told you, we get everybody booked.
That's crazy. Well, I mean, I would think, and I don't know, you're the expert here. That's just really a knowledge thing. That's just an understanding of what's there, because I got to imagine there's hundreds of thousands of people that own land that is
Right.
just sitting there not being used, period. And they
Mhm.
just don't realize that this is an option for them, right? So really it's
Exactly.
just about getting the word out, right?
Yep, and so that's what I'm focusing on right now is I'm trying my best just to get the message out on every platform I can and just tell people because yeah, once I'm in front of the right people who have land, they're on
Yeah.
board. Yeah, it's just trying to educate educate the landowners.
Yeah. What are you doing? Like where are you guys focusing your efforts on trying to find these people?
Like what avenues we're using?
Yeah, yeah, like
Uh,
for your to try to find the landowners to get them on board and make them aware of what's happening.
so we tried some targeted ways, but it was just too small scale.
Mhm.
That's why I'm just trying to learn a lot more about social media and SEO and just bigger ways to broadcast. Fortunately, I have a really good SEO guy now, so he's kind of taking over that, and we're seeing a lot
Yep.
of growth there. And then just trying to start my YouTube channel, things like this. I'm like, there's other, yeah. So it's things like this that I figure it'll take a little longer, to get the traction there so that people actually see it. But I think
Yeah.
that is our long-term plan for really getting
Yeah.
more hosts.
So if I were to say to you, okay, you're in a room full of owners that have land, what is your pitch to them?
I'd say you're sitting on money. I'd say that you don't have to worry about liability. We include host coverage. So you are secure. We verify the renters, we vet them beforehand, and you can set what you're okay with. If you don't want people there with pets, you can mark that. And so it's any stay length, and we will be there and help you through everything. I tell them it only takes about 10 minutes to get it listed and just see if you get bites. You don't necessarily have to approve and have them on your land, but at least you can see the value that you have.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that's awesome. I think this is a, when you first reached out to me about this, I was like, what is this? And I kind of looked it up, and I had no idea that I had no idea that this thing exists. I've been in real estate for 15 years. My wife is a realtor.
Oh, yeah.
Like we didn't really consider, these type of things that were out
Right,
there, that, this is just a whole other avenue
right,
that you can make money off real estate. And I don't think there's a lot of people that, it's not that they don't know, because it's like once I saw it, I was like, oh yeah, that makes complete sense, right?
right,
But
right,
not it being in the
right.
zeitgeist of my reality. It just wasn't there. It wasn't something that we had thought about or considered. And I think that it's become a thing where, for you, that it's really right at this point, it's just kind of getting the word out there and getting in front of people to let them know, because it's a fabulous idea. There's really not a whole lot of competition as far as other
Mhm.
other services that do this. There's a few, but not very many. And then it just becomes a matter of, okay, who's going to do the best job of it? And
Right,
especially you living that lifestyle and being it and understanding it and having your
yeah.
story to tell. I think that's a big piece of it. So I really appreciate you hopping on with me and telling me about this. I think this is a great opportunity. Any agents that are listening to this, when you're talking to your buyers and your sellers, this is just another tool in your tool belt to say, hey, look, if you have this kind of situation, there are ways to make income and revenue off of this. And if
Mhm.
you own land, it's definitely something you need to obviously consider and reach out and check it out. So just let everybody know the website name, how to find you guys, and then we'll wrap this thing up.
Yep. So it is HookHub. That's HOOKHUB.co. Can also go to .com, but we go by HookHub.co. That's where you can find us. And otherwise, at this point, it's exciting. You can just search HookHub on Google, and we pop up now. So,
There you are.
yeah,
You're on top. That SEO is working, baby.
yeah.
Well, Caylee, thank you so much for your time. Greatly appreciate it. We're going to definitely check in and see how things are going down the road a little bit with you, because I think that this is going to be a massive thing for you, and I'm rooting for you big time, because I think this is great. I think you're a great person. It's going to be an awesome opportunity for anybody that gets involved. So, all right, guys. Well, thank you for sticking around with us. I'll be back next week. We'll talk a little bit more lending next week. We'll get into some loan stuff, and then I've got another market update coming out, because things are just chaos. Rates are coming down. It's good, but housing market is still slowing down. So we'll see how this thing continues. But if you got land, you're in good shape. All right, guys. Everybody have a great weekend, and we will see you next time. Thank you, Caylee.
Thank you.